All Three Beards Media podcasts originate from the Gravitate Co-working Studio, sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company.
This Three Beards Media podcast may contain mature themes, and if you're not down with that, we got 3 words for you. Like the podcast. Nailed it!
Would you like to sample some of my nuts?
Hello and welcome to a brand new edition of Old Man Strength. I am your host, Chris Shipley, and I am proud to present my new co-host of Old Man Strength, who may or may not be older than me, Aaron Wall. Aaron, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Despite my picture in that opening that shows me as bald as shit, I am not older than you. Thanks
I don't even
that,
know.
By the way.
I don't even know where I got that photo. I got it from somewhere. I don't even know.
Super flattering.
Yeah.
Appreciate
so you feel free to send me a new one. I'll get that updated for you.
Yeah. That's good. It's too late now. It's on the internet. It's forever.
That's right. Well, considering when we first logged in, you had a pair of glasses on and then another set of glasses on your cap. And I was like, it's Old Man Strength, but you don't actually have to dress like an old man.
Honestly, didn't realize I had the other set on my cap. So that's why I had one on too.
When I first started dating Stacy, I did not have prescription sunglasses. So I bought these really big sunglasses that I would just wear over my regular glasses. And that lasted about 2 weeks before she was like, you cannot fucking go outside with me like that.
And she was right.
And she was right. Yes. So she's been fixing me ever since. So
never ending process.
Right. I know. She's got a job for life.
Mm-hmm.
So why don't we start off by telling the audience a little bit. You obviously were on Bitter Units before, and you're one of the 3 beards that is kind of behind the scenes. So why don't you tell everybody a little bit about you and your background?
Born in Missouri, youngest of 5 boys. So I've got a lot of sibling experience and stories if we ever get into that stuff. Moved to Iowa when I was 10. Grew up on the eastern side of the state. Went to college at Iowa State and taught high school in Iowa for 6 years. Moved to Texas because I'd met my wife and lived there for a decade, and then moved to Seattle area about 7 years ago. So I've bounced around a little bit, and it's always interesting to see what's going to come next.
Quite a bit. Texas, Washington. I lived in Phoenix for a little bit, so we've been kind of around the gamut a little bit. So
no, this isn't my last stop either. So
oh yeah,
I'll come retirement. I'll be headed back Midwest or even Mid-East, possibly a little bit.
I'd be happy to send you a photo of what it looks like outside, and you can fix that fucking mistake right off the bat.
Buddy, I didn't say I was going to stay to the north. I was probably going to get a little farther south.
That's a smart move because it sucks. It absolutely sucks. So, although my wife tonight was like, I kind of could go for another snow day.
Sure.
So, well, listen, we should probably address a little bit of the elephant in the room. Obviously, we are still called 3 Beards. We did make a change to the logo. It is now just a group of 2, you and I. I'll just preface it by saying I absolutely love Tim. Love what he brought to the table. Will always be supportive of him. But there was just a disagreement on some things, and we all decided to part ways. So that's what brings Aaron on to Old Man Strength, and we are moving forward. But again, appreciate everything that Tim did. I wouldn't be in doing this at all if Tim wouldn't have asked me to do this under the Tailgate Society, who again is a great group as well that gave us a chance. So that's just where we're at. So
yeah, 100% agree. Tim's always going to be a friend of ours. And if he needs anything from us, he knows how to get a hold of us and vice versa. And, it's just unfortunate philosophical differences of how to move forward. It happens sometimes.
Yep, absolutely. So with that, we are rolling. So we're going to do an episode tonight where it's just me and Aaron kind of shooting the shit, kind of like an old school old man strength. And then we roll into some pretty big guests the next 2 weeks. We have Keith Murphy from WHO TV 13 next Tuesday. And then on February 13th, man, I scored an interview with Robert Irvine. I can't believe he actually answered that. So
that's pretty awesome. Spoiler alert, I won't be here for that one. Which is, given another piece of information about me is I do travel a lot for work, which makes a regular schedule and sometimes working with our guest schedules daytime or during the week is can be difficult for me. So we'll probably have more guest hosts now than we ever have, but we've got so many good people that have been on the show that are happy to come back. So I'm not worried about that in the slightest.
Yeah. It's kind of like the old Johnny Carson days when he would just have a guest host every once in a while, somebody new. So, but yeah, Robert Irvine, that's been in the works for a while. Keith Murphy's been in the works for probably a year. Could just never seem to get a time that worked for him. And then I actually had responded to a tweet of Robert Irvine's like in November. And I said, I would love to have you come on. And he responded and gave me an email address to email. And I emailed it. And then I got ghosted, didn't hear anything. And then I follow him quite a bit. And I just responded back to him. I think it was on Wednesday of last week and said, "Hey, Chef, you may not remember, but I sent an email and I never heard back about my podcast." And he said, "Send it again. And I'll be sure that it gets looked at." So sure enough, I sent it again. And the next morning I had a reply back from his assistant asking what the podcast was. And I gave her some rundowns and I didn't scare him off. So she responded that he was available on February 13th. And I said, okay, we'll book that. I'll move things around. So there we go. So
yeah, for sure. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so exciting stuff. All right, we're going to start off. We decided to come up with some topics here. So, Aaron, I will let you launch topic number 1.
Well, I wanted to start with just kind of goals for 2024. Personal work goals. Either one is fine. I'm not a New Year's resolution person, so that's not what I'm talking about necessarily.
Right.
But it could be related to the things that people do that. Both you and I are big guys.
Yep. Yeah. Well,
I got to walking and doing stuff back in the summer last year and dropped about 8 or 9 pounds. And I've kept that off, but I need, at 270 to probably lose another 20 or 30. That's one of the things I'm going to try to work on a little bit harder this year. My wife and I joined the Y. I'm going to start doing yoga.
Nice.
Can you imagine me in a yoga studio?
Oh man,
I'm the least flexible person on the planet. Like I bend over to try to touch my toes, and I am a foot from my toes. It's not even close.
I'm not very flexible either. So
just getting limbered up and that kind of stuff would, I'm sure, help. Hopefully.
No shit. I kind of am on a similar journey. I've been pretty open about it on false starts that I've been going to see a therapist just to kind of help me work through some stuff and whatever. And one of the conversations he had, and it actually coincided with something my wife asked me, because she said, when was the last time you felt like mentally and physically better? And I said, well, it was when I was going to the gym every day and tracking my food, and I was going to a nutritionist, and I felt I was down to like 250, and it was in the middle of 2020. So, so then like a couple of days later, I went to go see Dr. Kipling, and we were talking, and he said, I think what you need is to just go find one thing that you have to hold yourself accountable to, right? Like whatever that is, and you hold yourself accountable to it. And his office just happened to be right around the corner from Ekin Nutrition, who was my nutritionist at the time that I was doing all that before. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to stop back there. I'd quit doing it because I was just frankly sick to death of tracking everything and it not working. And I was over obsessed with it. And it got to a point where it was like an albatross around my neck. I remember I was at a barbecue and everybody was eating burgers and whatever else. And I was eating some kind of vegetable, like mushroom burger. And I was like, this fucking sucks. Like, I hate this. So I stopped at the nutritionist. This was in early November. And I said, I just want to get back on the plan and start over. I was doing ferals, kickboxing. I was going like every single day. And I said, I don't want to do that anymore. So she was nice enough to just write me up a simple little workout plan. And she should just follow this. So ever since then, I've been going to the gym every day as best as I can, Monday through Friday. I walk the treadmill for a mile. I do 6 sets of strength exercises, whether it's back and triceps or whatever. And I track my food. And since November, through the holidays, through the bowl game that I went to, I'm down 9 pounds. I've lost 22 pounds of fat. Nice. And I just feel so much better. But it was just that one accountability. And I told Stacy yesterday, I said, the biggest thing for me is I'm not obsessing over it. Like if I miss, I'm supposed to eat 6 times a day. If I miss the afternoon one, I'm not going to obsess about it. It is what it is. If I go a little over my macro amount or whatever, it's fine. If we end up making hot dogs and whatever, then I'll figure out how much of that I got to eat to fit into my macros as best as I can. And if it's not perfect, it's not perfect. It's fine. And it's working.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree with that philosophy too, as a guy that, exercise and sports science major at Iowa State, being a PE teacher. I agree with that. Now I wasn't a personal trainer, but I think if you put too much pressure on being really strict about it, it's the average person, that's not going to be always the best thing for them.
Right.
That, if you're a high level athlete and things depend on that, really
right.
strict diet or whatever, if you're freaking The Rock trying to get buffed up for a movie, yeah, sure. Right. You got to do it. But for the average person, being really strict about it and beating yourself up if you make a mistake or doing it's just not, it's not good. It's about the overall idea of trying to be better more so than being perfect. So yeah, good job.
It was to the point where I would get up every morning and step on the scale to see if I had gained or lost anything. I'd go weigh in at my nutritionist every Saturday morning. And because I was so hyper focused through the week, then as soon as I would weigh in, I'd go get something to eat somewhere and eat a bunch of crap, and I'd eat it all day long. And then it would bleed into Sunday, and then I'd start over, and then I'd go hard again. Whereas now I weigh in once every 2 weeks. And after that, my treat is I'll go to Brent's kolaches place and get a couple kolaches for breakfast. I'll go back and eat what I'm supposed to eat for lunch. And then Stacy and I will have a nice dinner or something on Saturday. And then I'm back on Sunday because I don't feel like I cheated myself through the rest of the week.
Yeah, no, for sure.
So it's just a whole different mindset when you tackle it from that way. So you're exactly right. Being hyper focused is just not for me.
Yeah. And lots of the studies say getting on the scale is not ideal either, frequently and always checking it, because it crushes your mental state if you're up a pound one day versus down 2 pounds another day. And it's like, well, that can be water. That can be, that's not important. How do your clothes fit? There's signs if you're going in the right direction that are subtle but are noticeable. When
Yeah.
when your belt feels an extra loop looser or whatever, even if you haven't lost any weight, you've slimmed down and you've gotten healthier.
Yeah.
So,
And one of the side effects of me having cancer from 6 years ago is my stomach is part of my esophagus now. Like my esophagus is gone. So there is no, like, everybody has a little flapper up top there, well, mine is gone. So if I lay flat and sleep too long flat, that stomach acid will roll into my lungs and make me start to cough and gag and sometimes even throw up. And what makes it even worse is the heavier you are. And the last 6 months, man, I'm telling you, there wasn't a week that go by that I wouldn't have 1 or 2 episodes in the middle of the night where I'm downstairs throwing up and then having to sleep in the recliner. And every night I'd be like, I know this is happening because my weight is out of control. I know it is. And since November, I've maybe had 2 episodes because I've slimmed down. And to your point with the scale, I was going in Saturday to go weigh in and I was like, I'm sure I have not. I didn't go to the gym for a couple of days because the snow and, I forgot to eat this and whatever. And I was just like, you know what? It is what it is. Whatever it is what it is. And I went in and I was up 0.5 pound, but I had dropped 6 pounds of fat and gained 6.5 pounds of muscle. I'll take it. Like, okay, so I didn't drop any weight, but to your point, my clothes fit better. So,
right. Any other goals for the year?
You know what? My other goal is I want to do some traveling. Stacy and I, the boys we're trying to work to get the boys some services, like job coaching and stuff, and then get them moved into housing. And one of the things that Stacy and I have talked about is we would just like to do a little, not necessarily like big long travels, but like, a weekend trip here or a weekend trip there. And so we're going to try to do something every month and just go like next month, we're going to go to Minneapolis. I think she wants to go to the Prince thing that's up there. So we're going to go with some friends. In March, I really want to go to the Big 12 basketball tournament. We had a lot of fun a couple years ago. We took a couple trips, just the weekend trips, and they're fun. They're good to get away. And so that's kind of what my goal is to just do more of that, spend more time alone with her. Because the kids are older now and I want to do it before I get too old and decrepit and I can't go anywhere.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I really don't have any real goals for this year. As far as that kind of stuff goes. I mean, I'd like to get my golf game back into shape, but part of that is, a health benefit too, right? So that's kind of being more active. And I carried my bags and walked 18 holes probably a month ago.
Yeah.
For the
wow, that's impressive.
For the first time in I don't know how long. It's been forever. And promptly proceeded to strain my calf. So, that didn't help. Slowed everything down. But, right now I'm happy to be under 100. I haven't played in 6 years before last summer.
Really? It's been that long?
Yeah. So basically since I moved from Texas to Seattle, I hadn't played. With traveling for work, it's hard to justify being gone all week and then coming home and be like, see ya, I'm going to be gone for 5.5 hours.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm traveling a little less because I've been able to add people to my territory, so I don't have to go certain places anymore as often, and just closing the holes down and being able to stay at the house a little more often. So I feel a little better about going, and just trying to get. I'd like to get back down into the mid 80s again. I don't know if I'll ever get back down into the
mid 80s. I don't think I've ever shot mid 80s. That sounds like a dream.
I've been as low as 73 when I played all the time.
Shut the front door. Really?
I don't know that I'll ever get to that again because I was playing like every day, maybe even 36 holes, because I was teaching and I had a membership that was play as much as you want. And in the summers, that's all I did was just go play golf. So
when you walk, do you find yourself playing a better game when you walk?
I used to. I think some of that is just being loose and staying loose and all of that. I didn't play bad when I walked this last time, but I could tell by the end I was getting pretty tired.
Yeah.
But it helps that I'd been walking, a mile and a half and stuff before that. I'd already started walking. But even walking a golf course is 3.5 miles or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's even more walking than you think it is. But it's good. I'm gonna get back to it. I may get old enough to get a push cart or something at some point and continue to walk, but push rather than carry.
So
but that's
what I would do.
That's hard on my manhood.
Not me, man. It's not even a push cart. A pull cart is totally fine with me. I was doing something similar when I lost all my weight the first time after I had gastric bypass in like 2007. This little golf course here in Norwalk, I lived in Des Moines at the time, had a membership, and it was like $300 for the year. And if you went and played and then you got a cart, you'd pay extra for the cart. Well, then I would just walk. And I was getting off at 2:30 every day, and it was good exercise. And I would walk 18 holes, and it would take me about 3 hours or whatever, because I'd go in the afternoon at like 3 o'clock. Nobody was ever out there.
Yeah, if it's not busy, you can motor right along. Yeah.
Yeah. And I bought a little pull cart and just walked around, but I found myself playing better because if I hit a bad shot, then the next time, by the time I got to the ball, I had time to think about it. You know what I mean? Or I had time to, whereas you get in a cart and you're kind of irritated, you get up there, you're like, all right, now I'm pissed still. Walking to that ball really calms you down a little bit.
Yeah.
So
right.
I always found myself play better when I walked, but
yeah, I tend to play better the harder the course is, but that's just a focus thing too, I think. So, I play smarter, don't get the driver out on every hole and, try to haul off and destroy things. So, but yeah, well, good luck on your goals.
Yeah, you too. That'll be fun.
We'll circle back to this later in the year and see how we're doing.
That's right. We'll see where we're at. All right. Well, let's talk about. I want to talk about the NFL games yesterday, specifically Cyclones in the NFL. I cannot believe the shit that Purdy's getting. I cannot believe the fucking hate that kid's getting.
Oh, I mean, I can. And I think a lot of the pundits that are still doing it are the draft guru guys, the guys that don't want to admit that they were wrong. And it happens all the time,
Yeah.
It 7th round guys make teams. Undrafted guys make teams. There's plenty of evidence that there's no perfect science to selecting a guy, and some guys just have it, some don't, and that's hard to verify until they get on the field. He's not the most gifted quarterback. He's not. He doesn't have the biggest arm. He doesn't have tremendous speed. But he's mobile enough. He's got enough arm. The greatest quarterback in NFL history didn't have a big arm.
Right.
And I'm talking Tom Brady did not have a cannon.
Right.
But he could make all the throws. He anticipated and he saw the field. Peyton Manning didn't throw a beautiful ball.
Mm-mm.
Just a really smart quarterback.
Right.
He knew exactly what was coming and what was happening. So having the best arm or the tightest spiral, I think it was McMahon used to throw ducks all the time.
Yes.
And won a Super Bowl, right? I mean, that ball didn't always look great, but it's does it get where it needs to go when it needs to be there? And more often than not, Purdy does that.
It makes you wonder. So Brady was a 7th round draft choice.
No, he was he was a sixth, I think it was.
Yeah, Denny's right though. He's got the game smarts. He knows what to do and when to do it. Yeah, that's exactly what he is. But my point is that Brady was not a highly touted guy. He was 6th round. Kurt Warner was undrafted.
Right.
And those first
Hall
seasons,
of Famers.
Right. And those first seasons that they played, if they would have played maybe in this era where social media and the screaming pundits of, Stephen A. Smiths of the world and the clickbait and the Nick Wrights and everything else, who's to say that they wouldn't be saying the same thing about those guys in their first year and a half?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Why is Brady playing and not Drew Bledsoe, the guy that, is a first round draft choice or whatever else? He wins the Super Bowl. I think he puts a lot of those guys to bed. I mean, he has to. Is he probably, out of the four left, not the most gifted, talented guy with all the tools? No, probably not. But he's not going to make the big mistake. He's going to go where he needs to go with the ball. And like they said yesterday, he played more in the shotgun in a Kyle Shanahan's office than any quarterback that he's had before in that entire game. Why is he lining up in the shotgun if he doesn't trust him? If he doesn't think he can do it?
Well, and the other part of it is people bag on him and say he's awful and everything. You got to remember, he's like in the top 0.5% of quarterbacks that play football of all time.
Right.
Just by being in the league and starting games.
Right.
It's like, this isn't some schmo off the street. It's a guy who has earned it. He's gotten there. He's done the work. And, I'm not big on bagging on people. I mean, I get upset every once in a while at a guy for a drop or whatever, but right. I also still understand that they're the best in the world.
Yeah.
And it's not even close. I was a good high school athlete. I went to college and played pickup basketball against Reggie Hayward one time, and it's a completely whole different thing. Right. It's those level of athletes. Even Purdy is a superior athlete to most anybody you've ever played against or seen.
Right.
It's just, they're just different. And you got to remember that too, that, I mean, it's not everybody can do what he's doing. I still see people saying Darnold could do it too. Well, then why isn't Darnold starting? They're on the same team. What are you talking about?
Right. Trey Lance. Why did they trade Trey Lance? If it's just a system and anybody can do it, then why did they ship out Garoppolo and why did they ship out Trey Lance? That's, give me a break. And if I remember right, and maybe I might be wrong, God knows I've been wrong before. I believe after the Fiesta Bowl, when in 2020, he was on some draft boards of being in the first round or second round.
Yeah, there was some really early, maybe coming out of his sophomore year, or maybe something like that. People that were like, he's a potential first rounder. And there was a lot of talk about his size and, being a detriment and all this, and being able to hold up. But then they're like, well, no, but look at the size of his legs. He's got big old legs and he can move and take the hits and, he's built well. And so, it's just one of those things. People get dug into their position on something and just refuse to let it go. And then there's other people that are like, you know what? I missed that one. I was wrong. And he's awesome. So
it's kind of nice to see like RG3. Matt Leinart today was hammering people about their takes on Purdy. Like he was going after like regular people that were responded to him. Like, I don't know why you think you know anything. Did you play in the league? That kind of shit. And Richard Sherman is going after Nick Wright and those guys. Emmanuel Acho, who I don't normally agree with, is, defending him. There's guys out there that have played ball that know. But then you hear people like Ryan Clark that just goes off on a tangent about stupid shit. And I like Ryan Clark for some of his takes, but I don't get it. I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't get it either, but you're never going to get everybody on the same page. I mean, that's why people still argue about who the greatest quarterback is and who's this and who's that. And people just want to be contrarian sometimes. And there's better places to pick that battle right now than whether Brock Purdy is any good or not, because he's obviously good.
Right.
How good is he is to be determined by how the rest of his career goes.
Yeah. So out of the four teams, what in order, who do you want to win Super Bowl?
Well, I'm born in Kansas City. So
Are you fucking shitting me?
I've been a Chiefs guy my whole life, even though
No shit, I did not know that.
even though I don't necessarily follow the NFL as closely as I do, say, college and stuff. If it's not the Chiefs, I'd really love to see Purdy win it.
Yeah.
Detroit's right there. Partly because I loved watching Barry Sanders as a kid. Detroit has been a long-suffering program or franchise, I guess, not a program, and to see them come through and pull one off would be great.
Right.
Baltimore is a far distant, can kiss my ass fourth place because I just don't care about them.
I don't have any allegiance to Baltimore. I'm kind of one of those guys that,
sorry, Charlie Kohler, but
right.
But,
Denny's on board with you. He likes the Chiefs. I'm kind of one of those guys, like when the Chiefs started getting really good, I goes, all right, somebody new. And now I'm like, they've been in 6 straight AFC championship games. I'm tired of those fuckers. Although I'm a huge Kelsey fan, Travis Kelsey, Jason Kelsey. Those guys are legit. But I'm probably number one rooting for San Francisco just because I want to see Brock win it all. I've got a soft spot for him. When he got drafted, I tweeted immediately that he was going to make the team and eventually start at some point. And man, did I keep the receipts on that.
Yeah, I've seen a few of those.
But I'm kind of with you with Detroit, though. I'm a Bears fan, but I always liked their uniforms. I loved Barry Sanders. And before I went to Iowa State and was an Iowa State fan, I was kind of a Chuck Long fan. So when he went there and played there, that's kind of how I got on board with them. And I just always kind of rooted for them. So I don't mind rooting for Detroit, especially now that Montgomery's there. But if it would have been the Packers or the Vikings, they would have kissed my ass because I got absolutely no love for them whatsoever. So
yeah, well, that's the other side of the Detroit thing too. Is that's why they're kind of on the same level as San Francisco for me, is because Montgomery being there, it's a great story if they win.
Yeah.
The fact that there's an Iowa State guy on every team except for Kansas City, I think.
Yeah.
Is pretty cool. That all of those guys have been in good franchises and good situations to be able to get there. Now, granted, David had to leave that dreadful program of the Bears to do it.
I don't even blame him for that, but he didn't have to kick us on the way out the door.
Well,
he could have just said, thanks, Chicago, I appreciate it. He didn't have to go out and go, well, I'm leaving because I want to go to somebody that can win. Like, dude, come on, you can't.
I mean, he wasn't wrong. You've seen what Chicago does.
I know, I'm aware. But you know what? The whole divisional round, Anthony Johnson played for the Packers. He was on the Packers. AJ Klein is coming off the couch and making 11 tackles. I mean, there was quite a few of them in there, so it was a good deal. So,
yeah,
and Xavier
really
Hutchinson
nice.
playing for the Texans too.
Yeah, it's been you have to call it the golden era of Iowa State football as far as that stuff goes. Probably
right.
Might be the most we've had in the league at any one time.
Yeah.
And if it's not, it's awful close, and it's
got to be close.
It's the most in a long time.
Yeah. Maybe the late Walden era when they had Keith Sims and Gene Williams and Gibson was playing and some of those guys and whatever, which I didn't realize Dennis Gibson actually lives in Ankeny and owns a bar there now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Keith Schrogi, who was on at the end of the year, who played in the early 80s for Kreiner and for Duncan, and then was a GA for Walden. I've gotten to be friends with him, and I met him up there for a drink when he was in town before the Texas game. And it was Dennis Gibson's bar. I had no idea that he even lived in Iowa and had a bar up there. So that's crazy.
Didn't know that either.
Yeah. Pretty nice place. So,
yeah.
All right, let's take a break. We're going to get a word from our sponsors, Revelton Distilling Company and Gravitate Co-working. I can't thank Rob enough for all he's done for Three Beards Media, hosting our events down there. And then Jeff and his crew at Gravitate Co-working, I've used their space quite a bit to get out of the basement here. You can rent a space. You can rent office space there. You can get a private suite. They've got everything you need there if you want to have a meeting and things like that. So you definitely want to check those guys out as well. So let's get a word from them, and then we're going to come back and we're going to hear Aaron's got an Am I the Asshole story that we're going to talk about.
Why take the best corn in the world and make it into fuel when you could make it into whiskey? That's the question that launched Revelton, Iowa's most visible and fastest growing distillery. Owners Rob and Christy Taylor embrace the grain-to-glass philosophy, sourcing ingredients locally and overseeing on-premises production and bottling at their facility in Osceola. One sip, and you'll agree that Revelton's handcrafted whiskeys, gins, and vodkas are the best you've ever tasted. And with the launch of their rye whiskey, made with 100% Iowa-grown rye and corn, and their new bourbon coming soon, there's more Revelton to love than ever. Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. The great thing about working from home is working from home. The worst thing is working from home, especially for face-to-face collaborations with customers and coworkers. And let's face it, coffee shop meetings are neither private nor professional. So skip the trip to Starbs and investigate Gravitate Co-working Space. For more than 10 years, Gravitate has provided large and small office and conference spaces perfect for hosting meetings, workshops, or other events, as well as private phone booths for confidential conversations. Plus, all spaces include secure fiber internet, free coffee, and access to a kitchenette. All you need is your laptop. Gravitate does the rest. And renting space at Gravitate is surprisingly affordable. An hour of office space costs about the same as venti caramel macchiatos and breakfast sandwiches for two. Daily and monthly rates are also available with no long-term commitment. Learn more at gravitatecoworking.com. That's gravitatecoworking.com.
All right, and we're back at Gravitate Co-working Studios. We got a busy studio this week. We had Side of the Storm last night. Tomorrow night is False Starts with Bill Blank and I, with special guest Sergeant Paul Parisic from the Des Moines Police Department. We're going to kind of dive into, what they see and what they go through. We had that unfortunate, terrible shooting in Perry, and first responders see a lot of stuff that we wouldn't ever imagine, and would going to pick Paul's brain about what they have available for them for help and assistance, and then what they provide the community as well. So that'll be really good. And then Wednesday, Three Blind Refs are back after their hiatus. Ball Don't Lie is on Thursday. I'm sorry, Hawk's Eye View is on Thursday, and then Ball Don't Lie is on Friday. So we got a full week schedule, Aaron.
It's good. It's good. We put out some really good content. Those guys and gals all do a great job with what they do. And there's, ideally what we're trying to do is have a little something for everybody. So hopefully there's something there for you to enjoy.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Hit me with this Am I the Asshole story.
Okay. So this is a relatively recent thing that happened to me. And to preface, I'm in business-to-business sales in my everyday life. So I work for a manufacturer. I sell to people who sell my product, right? Excuse me. Recently, not recently, 4 months ago, I had heard a rumor about the GM of one of the locations that I deal with, that he and his son, who also works at that location, were not talking, and that the son might potentially quit. So I talked to a few other people that know them, said, "Hey, have you heard this? What's going on?" And trying to figure out what was happening. From my seat, I look at it as though I'm trying to figure out, am I potentially walking into a minefield? Could I say, "Hey, how was your Thanksgiving with your kid?" and set somebody off? That's the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
And so selfishly, from a business standpoint, it is, how do I avoid from having this happen and affect my business?
Right.
So I talked to people who were part of that company, but in other branches. So they all know each other. You know how that goes. It's all tied together. And nobody confirmed it. None of the people that I talked to confirmed those rumors or anything. So I just kind of left it alone, dropped it.
Right.
And then here not too long ago, I got a call from that general manager just reaming me about spreading rumors about him and this, that, or the other thing. And that it's none of my business and this, that, or the other. So I guess that's the question, right? Is trying to look out for my own personal best interest and not set people off, which is looking out for their best interest to some extent too. Is that something I should have done, should not do? Am I being an asshole if I'm asking around about that kind of stuff? Because I'm not saying that it's happening. I'm not like TV gossiping, but I get his point too, in that, it's none of anybody else's business, whether it's happening or not. And I think if I'd have had a better relationship with that particular guy, I might have just asked him directly.
Right.
But he's not somebody you talk to for various reasons. So I, tried to find out in other ways. So I guess that's the question.
So I guess my first inclination is that it's an honest reaction on your part to have, because obviously somebody told you. It's not like this just magically appeared to you without somebody telling you.
Correct.
So there was a concern by that person, obviously, that felt maybe you needed to know. Now, maybe they were gossiping, or were they telling you because they thought, hey, before you walk in there, you should probably know this.
Yeah, and that person was inside of that organization as well.
Right. So to me, I think that's a natural reaction, is to want to know what's going on so that you don't offend anybody. And so, no, I don't think your intentions were assholeish at all. I think it was a legitimate question. Can you now look back and think, yeah, like you said, yeah, he was probably right. Maybe I could have handled it differently. That's okay. But that doesn't make you wrong for the way that you handled it before.
Yeah. And I'm not sure I would do it necessarily any different at this point either. I mean, I can see his point.
Right.
But I don't know that I would do anything any differently either. So, because it's just one of those things where this individual is volatile about things anyways. So
okay,
it's like,
so all right, so then that enhances for me that you did the right thing then, because he's obviously got a reputation of maybe not being cool about stuff or losing his temper or whatever else. And especially if you knew that there was tension and then you just walked in there and just walked right into a shit show, I don't blame you at all for wanting to check. Be different if the guy was a different type of person, right?
Right. Like I said, if it was somebody I had a good relationship with, which is most of my clients,
right?
It's something I could just sit down and have a conversation. Hey, is something going on here? I've heard this. It would be easier. And this is probably the one client where I wouldn't feel comfortable doing that.
Right.
Just because of the way he is.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. So it's just an interesting.
Yeah. Denny weighs in, says no. I think he's saying no. You're not the asshole. Sales is a different bird. You don't really sell your product. You're selling yourself and your confidence.
Correct. Right. Yeah. And people buy from people. Right. That's the way I've always looked at it.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things where everybody's going to have a different opinion. If you have an opinion, tweet at us,
right?
Or X at us.
That's right. X at us. Maybe who knows? Maybe Maybe there's a reason why his kid was pissed at him. It sounds like a dick.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like I said, I don't know them personally outside of work at all. So
okay. Bill's chiming in. Bears are 63 and 100 over the last 10 seasons and have an overall losing record since the Super Bowl. Why are we talking? Why you're like 2 segments too late, Bill? Come on,
he's not
man.
wrong though.
Like he's not wrong, but that's just be throwing out stats like that. That's ridiculous.
I mean, that's Browns level terrible almost.
That's I know. Well, that's what they get for firing Lovie Smith. The dude had a winning record when you fired him. and you went out and you grabbed Mark fucking Trustman. Don't even get me started on that. You actually you ever check your memories on your Facebook? Like, do you ever go look at your memories of
No.
stuff?
I mean,
So
if I happen to get on Facebook that day and see one, then that's the only time I see one.
right. So I went to my memories today. I always check my memories just because it's kind of funny. And let's see, I gotta find it. I can't remember. Oh yeah. In 2015, I tagged my buddy Dan Moore, who's a Broncos fan, and said Chicago's bear be like, look what the Broncos threw out. And I was super excited that they hired John Fox. And looking back at that, what a terrible fucking hire that was. So Bill said he had to get the numbers together. He can't hate without facts. Nice.
That's true. That's true.
And he also said if the employee hadn't been the GM's son, would you have approached it any differently?
Yeah, probably. Probably would have, because I know the odds of the kid quitting are probably not very good. And just the tension, family tension is different than just regular work tension to a certain extent. So yeah, I may not have done anything about it if it was just an employee. But because of the family dynamic of it, I probably did handle it differently than I might have otherwise.
That makes sense. Big news came out today. So Aaron's tuned in because you're an Iowa State fan, but the whole state of Iowa was up in roar over this gambling investigation that snagged the people from Iowa and Iowa State. Guys like Noah Shannon at Iowa lost an entire year just because they made a bet on one game. Hunter Decker's, is gone. Jarrell Brock. I think Iowa State's football team suffered quite a bit more. Although if you look at the end of the season, I don't think it hurt us terribly. But guys like Jake Remsburg makes one bet on women's basketball, and the dude missed almost the entire season. I mean, but for those of you that haven't heard, it apparently looks like that there's a rogue agent that actually went outside of the rules without a warrant and proceeded to throw geofences around some areas to try to catch people gambling. That's the report according to Van Plum, who is representing Isaiah Lee and Irazuike.
Right. Yeah, and I've seen that, and apparently did it like twice. He did it once and took it back to his superiors, and they told him no.
Yeah,
he didn't have enough evidence, and then he did it again
without a warrant,
and they said, yeah, okay, run with it. Which I don't know if he lied to his superiors and said, oh yeah, we've got a warrant. I think they would know. I don't know how all that works. I've never been in code enforcement, law enforcement, whatever you want to call it. So it's pretty wild, and it's pretty obvious that this guy was targeting specifically high level schools, because it was just Iowa and Iowa State apparently.
Yep.
Specific programs, football, basketball, because he geofenced apparently specific facilities that only allowed athletes in.
Yep.
And, some things like that. It's wild to me that one person put all of this in motion.
So two things
on his own.
Two things pop into my head. What world do we live in where your supervisor tells you to drop it and you supersede that and go double down in an investigation like that? Now, this is my conspiracy brain running. Surely somebody higher up than him said, go ahead, keep going. Like,
yeah, that's I see your point, right? Do it anyways kind of thing. Hard to say, especially when you're talking about a government agency. There's politics involved. There's all kinds of bullshit that we may not ever hear. You can conspiracy theory it all you want, but the things we don't know about what goes on in government and everything else could is enormous. It could fill a warehouse full of
I'm sure,
thoughts.
right.
It's not even a matter of whether we know everything or not. We don't, and it's not even close. So,
Right.
this is
I
one of
just
those things.
I just feel like I can't wrap my head around the fact that his supervisor told him to drop it and he doubled down on it without some kind of fear of retribution, right? Like that's where I'm having a hard time wrapping my head around it.
Well, and the second part of it is, did the guy think that they weren't going to find out there wasn't a warrant when all this started, or any?
That's what
like,
right.
Did he think he was going to be Randy Marsh walking down the street with his balls in a wheelbarrow? I mean, it's like, what are you doing? You don't listen to your boss, and then on top of that, you did it illegally.
Yeah.
The amount of money that the state is this Van Plum guy is going to ram it right up the state's rear end. It's going to be,
and he should,
ugly.
And I feel bad for the college students, but Razuike, his entire pro career is gone.
Yeah, we'll see if he ever comes back from it.
I mean,
I think he's technically still on Denver's roster, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He's indefinitely suspended or something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
he's on like the
commissioner's
list or something like that.
Yeah, something.
This is what slays me the most, though. During Special Agent Sanger's deposition, he stated that he cannot remember why he decided to conduct the warrantless searches, but he was concerned about the things such as people infiltrating Iowa's sports team to gain insider information or match fixing. I'm calling total bullshit on that.
Yeah, well, he can't remember why. So either somebody told him.
Yes. That's what I'm saying, as far as there was somebody higher up that I think it's the Attorney General.
Well, because it could be.
Because she has said publicly she was not on board with the gambling thing and whatever. I think it's coming from the governor's office, but then again, that might be just because I don't care for that entire administration.
Yeah, maybe.
I'm fair to say I might be biased in my opinion, and that's why I'm going there.
Or let's say it's not politically motivated. Maybe this dude is himself a degenerate gambler.
Yeah.
And wanted to make sure that everything was on the up and up so that when he was losing his mortgage payment, he knew it was straight.
Maybe that might be true too. Yeah, that's actually I would have never thought of that.
And that's obviously unfounded speculation.
Right.
And a joke. Right.
No, I like that. Let's run with that.
But it's like I don't know what would possess somebody to make that decision. And then, like you said, double down on it and make that decision again.
Right.
And it'll be interesting to see if this goes forward and goes the way it looks like it's going, right?
Right.
What kind of compensation does a guy like Deckers or Remsburg or, Waziriki, you can kind of put a number on it because he's missing a paycheck from a season, right? These other guys, what potential unknown damages have you caused to them by basically ruining their athletic careers?
Right. Yeah.
Now you could come back and argue and say, hey, look, Jirel was a fourth-year junior and wasn't going to make the league based off his production or whatever. I mean, I'm sure some of that will play out, and who knows, but it's absolutely a civil rights violation, William.
Yep.
Because that comes into violation of privacy and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Now, having said all of that, I want people to understand where I'm at on this. The guys who were gambling, big bunch of idiots.
100%.
Because
the rules.
They knew the rules. It's not like they weren't talked about. Are the rules stupid? Yeah, probably.
Right.
I think a football player gambling on sports outside of
his own sport
and maybe even his own university, I can kind of see that issue, right? Shouldn't be an issue. It shouldn't be a problem,
right?
Because they're not any more privy to access to information, as far as I'm concerned, as the average Joe who went to high school with the tight end at the other school or whatever, right? everybody can get the information. How do you think Vegas always knows what's going on?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like that information isn't available if you really want to find out.
Right.
But as far as what those guys were doing, yeah, it's kind of dumb.
Yep.
You're not supposed to.
As far as the college students go and what they could possibly get compensation for, the only thing that I can think of in terms of how do you measure a college student's potential earnings is actually a case from Iowa. And it just actually the anniversary was, I think, yesterday, was the tragic death of Chris Street. And when his family sued the state and the county and the plow driver for future earnings or whatever of his pro career. So, I mean, maybe there's a precedent there somewhere. And I mean, obviously, Chris Street's tragedy is a much more tragic situation. But in legal terms and in legality, you can look at that precedent and say this has been set as far as future earnings for college athletes that were not given the chance to finish.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, then you're looking at, you'd probably have to drag in scouts and experts and all of this stuff to verify it.
It's not going to go to trial. They're going to settle, but I secretly would love for them to go to trial so everything comes out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because at some point or another, I got to think the state is going to want to settle before too much discovery happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because if there's skeletons in that closet, the state's going to not want them coming out.
Right.
So it'll be interesting. It's really interesting. To see how it's all going to play out. And William, you're probably right. Future employers and all that kind of stuff. Although, how much does a future employer take that into account? It's hard to say. It's immeasurable, really. It wouldn't stop me from hiring somebody if I saw that they were a kid who made a dumb mistake.
Yeah.
Be a little
Denny
different
wonders
if they were 40.
Yeah. Denny wonders if you can look at what they were making for NIL and extrapolate for that. Maybe, possibly, but I don't know. I don't know that in this case. I don't know that Jake Remsburg was making a lot of NIL money. Hunter Deckers probably was making the most, just simply because he was the starting quarterback. But that's certainly a possibility. For me, out of all of them, Noah Shannon and Jake Remsburgs are the ones that I feel the worst for. They didn't even bet on their own, like universities or whatever else. They made one bet. So
yeah, it's terrible, and I would feel differently if they'd have hit every college and university across the whole state and it was an entire thing, but they didn't. They just picked and choose to try to make a point, and that kind of shit irritates me.
Yeah, that why just them? That's the other thing. Bill says nobody from Drake was caught up in the breaking laws, and that's the other thing too. How did the criminal case that should be sealed get sent to the NCAA? They obviously leaked it to the NCAA as well,
right?
So that's the other avenue of it too. That is just sucks. All right, we're gonna move on. We're gonna take. I'm actually not gonna play the ad for Kyle Lehman. I'm gonna showcase a program that he has, and then I'm going to ask Aaron the Wintrust Mortgage question of the pod. So, and shout out to Kyle. Kyle has renewed his sponsorship from us. Kyle was one of the first guys that called us when we branched out and became Three Beards Media. He wanted to be a part of the pod and part of our group. And we've got some really exciting new stuff that we're going to do with him. But for now, if you are a doctor, a physician, a dentist, an oral surgeon, pharmacist, chiropractor, a vet, even a doctor who has 6 months remaining on a residency program, you now have the ability to get a very low down payment option on this new loan program from Wintrust Mortgage through Kyle Lehman. So I can't stress enough. 4 years ago, I refinanced with Kyle, and I actually went to go look at my loan today, and I've only got 11 years left. I shaved 8 years off that loan and going to save almost $90,000
Nice.
on a refinance that he did for me. But he's got different programs and different down payment programs. Last month he had one for new homeowner buyers. So I can't stress enough. Go check out Kyle. Give him a call. Look him up on Twitter. He's a Hawkeye fan. We love him anyways. But check out Kyle Lehman, Wintrust Mortgage, and he'll get you hooked up. So with that, you know the drill here, Aaron. I'm sure you've listened to the pod 1,000 times.
I think I've answered this question when I was on the pod a long time ago.
Have you? Oh, maybe you did. All right. Well,
maybe not. I don't know. Let's do it again and see.
Okay,
And then
let's see.
We'll find out.
I'll go. Yeah, I'll go. I'll pull the archives later and go look. So you have a magic time machine. You can go back 10 years, 2014. What piece of advice are you going to go back and give Aaron Wall in 2014?
Let's see. So 10 years ago, 2014, I was still in Dallas. I was in my current job, although I was a service tech still then. I wasn't a sales manager, let alone a district sales manager yet at that time. I think it would be to be patient, even maybe a little more patient than I was. I've always been, and this is going to sound super, jerky maybe. I've always been a pretty high achiever when it comes to work.
Yeah.
I've moved up the ladder quickly at times. And in some cases too quickly. At 25 years old, I was a high school athletic director, and had to learn on the fly, and I'm typically pretty good at it, but it does also cause mistakes a little more frequently when you're, a little bit underprepared, even though you're capable.
Yeah.
And in this job, I found myself to some extent doing the same thing when I was younger, pushing a little harder than I needed to. Not always feeling like people were noticing the work that was getting done.
Yeah.
And I'm not somebody who really wants a lot of accolade or rah good job stuff. I just want to be respected and I want it to be noticed that
right, acknowledged.
Done,
yeah,
right.
Makes sense.
And to some extent, keeping your job is that, right? I make the joke all the time that I haven't been fired yet,
right?
But it's one of those things where just being even more patient with a lot of things, work, personal life stuff too. My golf game right now, for one, I want it to come along faster than it is. But when you've completely changed your swing and grip and everything else, it takes time and patience. Patience, even at that time, I had a 0-year-old, right? My daughter has just turned 14 in December, so she would have been a month old at this point. Being more patient with her at times growing up and stuff. It's, I look back at when I was teaching and I think, well, I was pretty patient with a lot of those kids because I thought, oh, they're kids and they make mistakes and this happens. And there were times I wasn't, but with my daughter, it's like, it's a different expectation. That's probably not fair.
Yeah.
So patience in that respect as well. I would say that's probably the biggest thing that I would look back and say, hey, I could have done better by just simply being a little more patient.
I think that's spot on. Spot on. Bill continues with the Bears hate. I don't know why. I don't had 3 winning seasons since 2010, so you should be arrested for that. 7 winning seasons since 1990. Chris wishes he could go back and pick a new favorite NFL team. You're such an Bill went to high school with me. I don't even know why I'm friends with him anymore.
I think it's because he's pretty smart.
Yeah, that and I have lack of options. So lack of options. Let me ask you one thing.
Somebody's got to keep you in check.
So based off of what you had covered, I'll ask you this one thing. What made you change from teaching into to get out of that field? Because we know now teachers are probably have it the worst that they've had it in a long time with things that are going on. What made you get out of teaching and move on?
And there's a whole story we can cover at a different time on this sometime maybe. But honestly, the thing that got me out of teaching was the parents.
Yeah.
Just my kid can't do any wrong, the coddling, you can't do that. You know, if you're not going to parent your kid and you send them to school, then let me do it. Let the teachers do their jobs.
Right.
You know, let us instill some discipline. And I'm not saying that from a beat your child standpoint, but you know, let us put down rules and when we do that,
and consequences,
back us up. Right.
Yes.
You know, and so often we got stuff where that wasn't the case. And so you know, when I had to kick a drunk dad out of a basketball game and stuff like that as an athletic director and things like that, I'm just like, at some point I'm going to punch somebody and that's not going to be good for anybody. So for 25 more years of this or whatever it would have been at the time, I don't think I'm going to make it. It's probably best that I find something else to do.
Well, that seems like a topic we'll dive into next.
Yeah. My tolerance for stupid adults is pretty short.
Right.
My tolerance for stupid kids is pretty long because they're kids.
Yeah. Feels similar for youth sports. Parents can be so bad. Shortage of refs and coaches is due to parents. I think that's totally on spot. And being an athletic director, Jim Crozer, who is one of the refs on Three Blind Refs, talks about it all the time, how the refs are few and far between. And I think he's been roughing for 20 some years, and some of the younger guys are not following through and coming up, and eventually you're going to run out of those guys. So they talk about it quite a bit.
Yep.
All right, we're going to finish up here, but we got to do the famous STFU segment. Sorry, I had a mental break there. This came again, as always. We had Steph Copley on, who is an amazing host of Title IX on the Cyclone Network, Cyclone Fanatic Network. She came on, and Tim and I were, blabbering on, and she finally told us to shut the fuck up so she could talk. So we decided to make it a segment, and we asked that you listen to her note, go to the Young Women's Resource Center, make a donation in honor of Steph Copley. And when we come back, Aaron and I will shut the fuck up, and you get to say whatever you want. And if that means that you make fun of Bill, then that's okay too.
Sorry.
Hey everybody, it's Steph Copley, the woman behind the STFU segment on the Old Man Strength podcast. When I told the guys I wanted to sponsor this segment, they recommended that I make a charitable donation instead, so that's what I did. I chose the Young Women's Resource Center in Des Moines, Iowa. They're a nonprofit that supports, educates, and advocates for girls and young women ages 10 to 24. Their whole goal is to make sure that these young women become strong, self-confident, and successful. And if you know me at all, you know that aligns with my goals as well. If you're interested and would like to donate, check them out at ywrc.org and donate today. And remember, don't forget to STFU and listen every once in a while. Thanks.
All right. Thanks again, Steph. We were really honored to have our STFU holiday fundraiser down at Rebelton on December 9th, where we had a nice big crowd, and we raised a little over $1,000 for the Young Women's Resource Center that we were able to donate. So in the spirit of that, Aaron, I will shut the fuck up and you get to say whatever you want.
Yeah. All right. I'm actually going to kind of elaborate on what Steph is saying and talking about. because it's one of the things that I tell my daughter all the time, and that she needs to listen more and talk less. And the reason is adults, kids, people in general, it seems now are not listening to understand anymore. They're listening to respond. So before somebody's even done saying something or whatever, they're already wanting to blurt out an answer instead of taking the time to take in that information and parse it out and dissect it a little bit. And then give a thoughtful response, right? Because if you're already formulating what you want to say while somebody else is talking, you're not getting all of the information. You may be missing on subtle clues. You may be missing on hints that people are dropping and tone. So practice talking less and listening more. And that can even be in a room where you're not even in a conversation. Listen to what's going on around you. Listen to the things that are happening, because you can learn things in everyday life just by listening, whether that's that the train comes at a certain time or whatever it is. And it may not even be that important, but just take some time to do some active listening, no matter what it is. Just shut your mouth off and turn your ears on and practice at picking up all of the information of what's going on around you. I'll give you an example. When you're up and moving around your room and doing stuff, and you've got an old clock that's sitting there, do you hear it ticking? Nope. But when you're laying in bed at night and you can't sleep or whatever, all you can hear is that motherfucker tick. Right? Because you're shutting down, your ears are working. You're blocking out all the other noise. And then even sometimes if you catch it when stuff's going on, and then all of a sudden all you can hear is a tick, because you can focus on something.
Yeah.
And you can do that. So it would just be my recommendation to everybody is to talk less, listen more, and respect what people are telling you. If they're taking the time to try to have a conversation, respect what they're saying, whether you agree or don't agree on whatever it is, be it the way your boss wants you to investigate something or not. Just shut up and listen.
Yeah. I perfect response. 100%. We're going to wrap up. I want to quickly talk about one of the pods that we haven't talked about here. Amy and Jess and Holly from the Hot Mess Happy Hour. I know, right? From the Hot Mess Happy Hour are holding a contest. This is probably not the audience that they're looking for with a bunch of old men, but
you never know.
You never know.
Swifties are everywhere, buddy.
That's right. Revelton Distilling Company is having a Swiftie party.
Bill's a big Swiftie, I bet.
Bill's a big Swiftie. I know that. That's right. That's right. You should have heard the music he listened to when we were in high school. It was pretty bubblegum.
Crystal
Anyway,
Gale.
Yes, yeah. He was a big Barbara Streisand fan.
Oh yeah, nothing wrong with that.
That's right. Revelton Distilling Company is having a big Taylor Swift tribute on February 2nd. So the ladies at Hot Mess Happy Hour have a contest here. You can go rate where you guys listen to him, subscribe. Also follow him on social media and tell them what's on your friendship bracelet. Respond to them on Twitter, send them a direct message, whatever. And they have 2 tickets to give away. And you can join the Hot Mess Happy Hour ladies at Revelton on February 2nd. And any other Saturday, Revelton has live music and different specials and things like that. Check out their Facebook page for all that stuff. And it's just a good time. It's a great place. It's a great time. No, Bill, I don't even know what Yentl is. So nice try.
I thought he liked Zamfir and
every week.
Flute.
I don't even know what Yentl is. I swear to God, I don't know. So, all right, we're gonna get out of here. Aaron, you got anything else before we close for the night?
I don't think so. Looking forward to going down this road with you, and hopefully people will still enjoy it.
Me too. I'm super excited about where we're heading with it. 2024. One of our goals. I really would like to pull in some really cool guests and whatever. And I think the next 2 guests are going to be spot on. And last week we had Mike Warren on, and that was a phenomenal episode too. So appreciate everybody. That's right. Appreciate everybody listening. Appreciate everybody's support. And we will have. I don't even know. I'm not very good at this, Aaron. I suck at these closings. So let's just try this. Let's try again. Everybody have a great night. Thanks for listening. We are out of here.